Hi everyone, it's Andy from Hobby Headquarters. Well, today I've got a special kit, one that I've been very excited about building for quite a while. Today we're going to be building the Tamiya 35th scale World War I British tank, the Mark IV male. And the original version of this kit came out probably about 3 years ago now. In fact, it came out right at the beginning when I had just started doing YouTube. And I always planned to getting around to building the kit, and then for one reason or another, you know, more kits came out, something new, and it just kind of got pushed further and further down the pile. But now Tamiya is issuing this kit now, I should say, with RC unit inside. So it's going to have double motors and a complete 2.4 gigahertz RC unit. So it's the same 35th scale kit that you could build before, but now we can drive it around. Now, this is the third incarnation of this kit, and the first one was just the static model. The second one was this, and this was built by a friend of mine. This one had a single motor in it, and this was the type of thing that you could just turn it on, and you know, it would go over your, you know, drive over obstacles, things like that. And that was really cool. But now we will have the ability to actually control it with left and right. So there'll be two full motors in. We'll just have all kinds of cool time. Now we're going to build this just like the regular 35th scale static model. So we won't do any weathering on the tracks, but we'll probably weather up the rest of the parts inside, you know, because the tracks would just wear off if we did that. So very excited about doing it, so let's get started on it.
Hello!
Hey guys, my name's Gene.
My name is Yixing. My name is V.
We are from
Shanghai, China. Let's get started!
Okay, before we get started, one thing I've gotten asked quite a few times in the past is why this tank is called a male and why some are called a female. And it's actually pretty simple. On the side sponson right here, this big piece sticking out, if it has a cannon in it, it's a male. If it has just a machine gun, it's the female. So it's as simple as that. And usually the other sponson's a little bit smaller, but having the cannon male, machine gun female. Now we're going to jump right into all the electronic parts, or building the motors and things, I should say, not the electronics per se. First off, there are two motors which I thought were completely identical, but one's in a blue bag, one's in a clear bag, and I'm starting to wonder if one's a left and right motor. I've been looking through all the instructions and nothing appears to show that, you know, use the blue bag for one or the other, but we'll figure that out going forward. So there's a decent amount of like little gears and screwdrivers, wrenches, things like that, as well as some bushings and some metal gears in here. Now we've gone ahead and assembled the track, and that was just to get that out of the way. And Tamiya has just done such a wonderful job with this track. And we've left some of the spares that they give you. And it's just a matter of literally snapping it together. And that track works right there. And just makes it much easier to work on. So we've got our two links of track already built up, ready to go. We can snap. We are going to paint them. And I'll put a little bit of painted weathering on, but none of the regular powders that we would, because it would just rub off as soon as we started using the RC. So now that we have shown you the tracks, now we can go ahead and start assembling the first two motors that go inside here. Okay, after studying the instructions, it doesn't actually call out in there, but there is a left and right motor. And when you're assembling the gear right here, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute, when you see these little lock washers, I can't think of the actual word right now, those will be on the inside while you're actually building it. You actually flip them over and they'll turn up on the outside, but in the very first stage. So this is the right motor, so we're just going to put an R on top so we don't mess that up later on. And definitely would recommend getting a pair of tweezers, because there's some tiny little parts holding on. So this one goes in from this side, so when we're assembling this piece, flip this around, make sure I did it right. You're going to want to go in from this angle, and the tweezers are just going to make it much simpler than trying to hold on to all this stuff. And once you slide that on through, there it goes. It gives you a little piece of vinyl tubing that you cut a real small little ring with it, and that is just going to basically lock it in so it doesn't slide apart. So you don't have to, but this is our left side motor right here. Now we're going to attach the motors to the chassis here. And one thing I love, and I'm going to show you real fast right here, are these screw diagrams. And these are 1-to-1 scale. So you can take your screw, lay it down on the table, line it up, and that way you get the exact screw that you need to put in. Because there are quite a few different screws into these kits, and it's always very useful, you know, getting the right one in. Now we want to flip the motors over, making sure those little lock pieces are on the outside, and then it's just a matter of screwing those into place, which we have our little screwdriver over there with which is clearly is magnetized, which is always nice too, by the staple that's sticking to it. And that helps too when you want to go pick up a screw, having it magnetized. So we're going to attach both these motors right now, get those lined up into place, and then also the on and off switch. I'll take care of that, and we'll come on and move on to the next step. Okay, now that we have the two motors lined up, they also, the way they're attached, they have a little bit of play too, which will help you get it on the side of the sponson. So we're going to line the first sponson up, and the gear, or excuse me, the drive shaft should go right into this little spot right here. And then we can take our screw and whoop, I think it'd probably be easier just to feed it through, and then we can feed that through and tighten that up, and that is how both sides will screw together like this. You may have saw me struggling a little bit. That little screwdriver works really good with the smaller screws, but on these medium size, it's definitely best to get a big screwdriver. You have way more more leverage with it that you can actually tighten these little bolts with, little screws with. Now that we have that done, we can go ahead and we're going to make sure that we grease up each one of these gears, running just a little bit of grease inside that, and that is just going to protect them in the long run. And we'll turn that on in a little bit, and that'll run right through it. Okay, we're just assembling up some of the external pieces that make up the vehicle, and anytime you're putting multiple, you know, a piece together that could go either way, to me it always includes a key. And you can see there's a bigger gap here compared to this one, so it lines up perfectly with that side. And finally this piece will slide right inside of there. Everything just kind of almost clicks together. It fits so well. Okay, so we finished up that little back part, and the only thing we're going to do now is apply the poly cap, which we don't want to forget that, because that is going to help stick the top on, that we can still get it off later on when we need to change the batteries out. And then there's a little plug, oops, that goes right on top there, and that'll hold the poly cap in place. Now with the poly cap, with that part done, we can now lock in this center guide, feeding the wires through. It'll go just like that. In there. Oh, there it goes. And then we also have the front plate that we can glue all this into place, as well as the back, and this is going to get glued in. So I'm going to go ahead and glue those parts in right now, and then we can get the other side of the sponson on. And we've got both sides of the sponson glued into place. Plus, you also don't want to forget to put that extra locking screw in there. And what that does is it locks the left side motor perfectly in line, and that way your gear, or excuse me, your shaft is coming out, so we can just put the gear in place and it'll fit right into place there. And you put the other gear on the other side, and within 20 minutes you've got the base of your tank all ready to go. Now, this is probably one of the most important parts of the whole build, and that is checking out all the RC equipment before you put it inside and seal it all up so it's hard to get at. And we've gone ahead, it uses 8 AAA batteries, 4 in here, 4 in the receiver. And it's just a matter of following the wiring guide to make sure you've wired it up properly with the red and black. And if all should go right now, yep. And you can see we can, when we go left and right, one side locks up, the other side keeps spinning. And actually one starts spinning the opposite way too when you do that, so it'll actually give you a little quicker turn even. So very cool. So it looks like all the RC parts are up and running, so we're going to turn those off, and now we can go ahead and mount the wires and tie those all down, get a nice little tight, neat area for us. Okay, we've got all of the battery pack and all the mechanism all tucked away nicely in there. We did have to go and rewire, which was a matter of just unplugging it, so the wire would go through the side. This way you can pull the side out and then pull the battery pack out and change the batteries without having to pull all this other stuff apart. Now with that in place, we've begun to assemble the top of the hull. We've installed this pin, and this pin is going to correspond to the poly cap that we put inside there a little while ago. And we've also built up this little, I guess it's like the command center where the driver would look out. We left two of the visors open on it there. Let's pop that off there, and we can glue this into place, and also the other hatch back here is going to get glued into place. And all of this stuff can be glued open or closed, but because of the batteries and stuff inside of it, we don't want anyone looking down in there. And then it's just, once that gets glued into place, it's just a matter of locking the front in, dropping this down, and then it just pushes into place, and you've got it sealed. And now we can work on the side of the sponson. Just taking a few moments now and installing all of the poly caps that will be going on the outside edge of the sponson. And that of course is going to be so you can get inside this vehicle once you get the seal it all up. That one goes on the outside of that, and then these two little ones will cover up those pieces, which we'll put those on in a minute. What we're going to do now though is we're going to install the final two gears in the back, and it's as simple as putting some of these pins in first, these stainless steel pins. And sometimes the tweezers are going to be a little bit helpful with this stuff because the stuff is so small. And then we install our two gears. And that one should slide right inside of that. So they all lock into place. And we just have to install this locking plate. After we lube it all up there too, we'll have it just like this side. Okay, now we've just taken care of the most time consuming of the entire build, and that is all of these little tiny wheels. And there's two types of wheels too, and they're made up of two parts, so you got to cut off the parts, clean them up, and then when you go to put them on, there is a specific order that you must follow to get them to run right. So you have to just follow the instructions, go down the line. But a few of them, when you're putting this, like, you have to put two of them together, then slide it on. And that is strictly because without it, you won't be able to get it on over the other piece. So there is a detailed diagram showing each one of the way the way the road wheels go into place, and we're going to take care of that right now. And here is what it looks like with the external armor plates on there. Now, you glue this one particular one and this front one into place, but this one uses that poly cap in here to secure it. So you want to be very careful when you're taking that off, and that's so you can get at any of these gears back here. But this will lock in pretty tightly. But you want to be careful, though, what I was saying is with the wheels, so you don't have any of them fall off. But once that's in place, it's pretty sturdy. So now we'll work on the other side. Watching how the four drive sprockets go together on this. You don't use the plastic ones that come inside the kit. They've given you ones that you have to build up with metal gears on it, so you can last quite a long time. And it's just a matter of lining up the little pins and then putting 3 screws in on each side. We have the drive sprockets all made up. We can go ahead and put the bushings inside of here, and there's a specific one that goes on the inside and out. The round one goes on the outside, and the one right here I'll show you that's got the little notches cut out of it, that one goes on the inside because that's got the threads on it. And then it's just a matter of taking the little little screw that comes in there with the Allen wrench. Get this inside there and get the Allen wrench set up, and then just tightening it down. And this is accomplished on both the back and the front are done exactly the same way. Okay, we snapped the tracks on before we finished it, obviously. We were just couldn't wait anymore. Got the remote. Let's give it a little shot and test out all the different things. And yeah, it looks like it works pretty good. Started assembling the insides of the sponson, and you can see there's a little hole right here that we've installed a poly cap in, and that is where the gun is going to ride inside of there. This is made up of about 4 parts right here, so it's pretty well detailed, and it was all slide molded to get this unusual shape. The only other thing we have to do now is we have to do a little more sanding, get that little burr off, and put on things like the door, finish the gun off, and then we can put the roof on once we get that all mounted in there. So this was pretty easy and straightforward on building both sponsons, and we'll just slide the gun in and the machine gun, and then we'll be able to attach it with those little pegs right there. We'll attach it to the 2 poly caps that we put on the side of the vehicle. Okay, we've got both of the sponsons all built up with the cannon and the auxiliary machine gun that goes out the side. And you can see there's 2 pins inside here that'll plug inside the poly cap holes, and that'll hold that in place. Actually, just gotta lock that around. I'm not gonna leave them on right now until we're about ready to paint. I'm gonna take them off because it's just easier so I don't knock any of these machine guns off. But you can see how easy they snap right out. And we've got both of those built up there. And that is so we can get the battery pack out later. Now, I've also started to apply all of these little fixtures, and these cover up all the little metal pieces, part of the gears and things that we saw. We've also installed the machine gun, the front machine gun, as well as like the tow hook, things like that. And we're just about getting ready to apply the muffler on top here and the little box that surrounds all of that stuff. We've got all those parts ready to go. So for the most part, it's pretty much that easy, as you can see, putting it together. There are a few other little accessories that we will take a few minutes now to put them all into place. I wanted to leave the muffler off and paint it separately, but there's a shroud that goes over it and then another box piece that I just decided we're just going to go ahead, put it in, we'll paint around it. We'll take the tracks off, obviously, to paint as well, but it would have been a little bit easier if we could have painted it separately, but not the way it's set up right now. Okay, we're going to go ahead and spray paint, now that we've done all the construction, with NATO Black and completely cover the entire model with NATO Black. Now, the reason we're going to do this is twofold. First of all, NATO Black is a great color to lay down as a base coat, and it also will tell if we have any flaws or anything that we need to correct. And it's also going to be our shadow coat because this model is going to be painted in a solid color. I think it'll be good to do a black and white undercoat on it and really make the tonal differences between the panels really pop out. So we'll go ahead and finish up the entire model here with NATO Black, and then after that we'll move on. We'll remove the tracks and then paint the inner portions with white. Now that we have the NATO Black completed, what I thought I would do is just give you guys a quick little 360 of the entire tank. We've included all the accessories on, all the different parts are in place right now, and we're about ready to put the highlight coat, which is the white, on it. Now, when we go to do that, I will remove the tracks off of here. I just painted them in place because I figured, well, they've got to be painted with the NATO Black base anyway, and they're already stretched out. We don't have to worry about having them, you know, blow all over the place from the airbrush. So it worked out perfectly. So now let's go ahead and put the highlight coat on. We've begun to start to paint the kind of the muddy brown color that they have on it, and I made this color mixed up with XF52, about 50%, and then about 50% of buff, XF57, and mix the two together to get this kind of like almost like a chocolate milk type color, maybe a little bit lighter, but it should blend pretty well. We're also not going to go too heavy with the paint job on here because we do want to see a lot of that tone going back and forth. Now you may also notice too that the tracks are still in place, and that is because I took the tracks off and I realized that a lot of the internals, like the gears and some of the you know, drive sprockets and things like that, are exposed, and I thought it would be better to keep paint off of those if we're going to run this as an RC tank. So left the tracks on, we'll just repaint them later on. Gone ahead and finished painting the brown colors, you can see, and then I've taken it outside and shot it with a coat of Tester's Dull Coat to seal in our paint job. And now we're just putting on a little Mark Fit Strong. And there are only a few markings on this vehicle, but we definitely want to put some of this on because there are a lot of rivets. So if any of the decal lines up with the rivets, we should be able to get it to wrap right around it. Now it is going to take a couple of coats to get it to, you know, to sink into it there, but a little bit of time. So we'll put a couple more coats of Mark Fit on after this dries a little, put another coat on, dries a little, put another coat on, and then after we're happy with the way it looks, we're going to go ahead and shoot it with another coat of Dull Coat, seal in all the decals, and then we can move on to weathering. Now we're going to carefully take a little brown panel liner and just wet the surface of the muffler. Trying not to get it on the two straps because those would not rust like the rest of it. And then we're just going to take a little bit of old rust before it dries and kind of blend it in. And as it dries, it'll get flatter and flatter and kind of chalky looking like a real rust would look. Right now I'm working on the tracks, and I'll show you what I'm kind of doing here. We're putting down a thin coat of enamel thinner. Now I've already obviously sprayed the tracks NATO black again and completely sealed them with Dull Coat. Now I'm just using a variety of streaking grimes, different colors of it. A rust color, even a streaking grime that's kind of a gray color, and we're just going to kind of blot and blend this all together. Now I know it looks kind of heavy right now, but we're going to keep going over it with thinner and kind of blending in all this stuff together. Now we're going to use a variety of washes on the actual vehicle. Not the same colors or all the colors that we did on the tracks, but close. We're first going to put down a thin little coat of enamel thinner, and that just gets the wash flowing a little bit better so it doesn't build up in one area. But this time we're going to dip the brush into the wash, but then dip it into thinner as well, and then just go around the edges here, and not worrying that if it drips like that, because we're going to go over it again with some clean thinner, and just start highlighting. And then we can take our brush dipped in clean thinner, and just clean off some of the areas that we don't want it thick on. And we're going to go over with this thin down amount after that and really highlight all of the rivet heads. And we're going to do this with a variety of colors. We're going to use regular streaking grime, we're going to use a streaking rust, and maybe even a light rust on it as well too, to kind of break up this solid color that all this is on. Now, and this is going to be a process too of just constantly going over this and over it and over it. And then if you have any areas that are a little bit too heavy, you can take a cotton swab and blot off any of the excess. And just keep blending it around. So I'm going to keep doing this right here for a little while. And this side we've worked on already for a bit, and you can see it's only got 2 coats on it. We're going to do one more coat. We're just letting this one dry, and we're starting to get some nice streaking and some nice highlight effect on all of this stuff. We're also using our foam sponge with a little bit of a black and brown mixture, and we're kind of just chipping up around some of the edges too. I actually should have done this before the streaking part. I actually forgot about it, but we'll be able to go over, and if there's any areas that are too strong, we can put some more streaking grime and things around that. But this will give it a nice kind of beat up look. We want to do as much weathering as possible on this vehicle that is going to be part of the actual paint job. That way we're not worrying about any of it rubbing off like a powder or a pastel would, because we are using it as an RC tank. Here we go, guys. Here is our completed model, and we'll give you a couple of 360s of the vehicle, let you see what the weathering all turned out like. Have to say I am pretty happy with what happened with the tracks, using those multiple kinds of washes on it. Really gave it a nice mottled effect, and after we come around I'll kind of give you an up above and you'll see the tracks a little bit better. But I think we did an adequate job beating up the vehicle, making it look like it's been through the war. So here is a diorama base that you've probably seen me use multiple times. What I thought I would do here is just drive our tank over it, and you can see we've got pretty good control . And I don't want to go too fast because it's going to come down kind of hard, but you can see it can climb over quite a few things. And we'll even go backwards. Trench warfare. Whoa, that was a big one, but it made it through. And we'll just show you once again. So it's got forward, reverse, a slow turn where it only locks up one wheel, or you can, there it goes. That's a quick turn where it reverses one wheel and gets the other one going. So you can do donuts with the thing too. Well, I hope you enjoyed this build video, everyone. I want to thank you guys as always for watching, and please stay tuned because we have many more videos coming. And I have to admit, I am probably going to spend the next couple hours playing with this thing, driving it over just about anything that I can get my hands on.